Hey guys, Chemical Gamer here, bring you another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet video. So, today I just wanted to talk about all the new Pokemon here. I am planning on doing individual moveset guides for these guys, but with the introduction of Battle Season Regulation F coming tomorrow, I just wanted to get my thoughts on these guys first, so that you guys can know what to expect a little bit more. I think all 6 of the new Pokemon that are going to be allowed in Regulation F are going to be really strong in their own right, and it's going to be really important to know kind of how people are going to be running them, what their strengths are, and then some good counters. So that's kind of just what I want to do in this video, just really briefly today. We're going to go over all the new Pokemon, and then in a later date, we're going to do an individual moveset guide for all these guys here. So let's go and hop into things. Let's go and hop into Pokemon Showdown here. The first Pokemon I'm going to talk about is Hydrapple, the evolution of Diplin that came out in the Indigo disc. This guy is pretty nuts, and there's a couple of reasons why. If we take a look at its stats first here, 106 on the hit points is super bulky. It's super nice that this Pokemon just gets that insane amount of bulk. To the point where, and with the 110 defense too, that's absolutely crazy. And 80 special defense is respectable with the 106 hit points. So even with that low base speed stat, you don't really care. You're just going to be able to take hits just fine and then dish it out really powerfully. And that 120 special attack is really strong range already. But when you take a look at its signature moves and what it gets to run, that's where this Pokemon just gets absolutely nuts. So its signature move is Fickle Beam. This is an 80 base power dragon type move, but it has a 30% chance just to double. So it has a 30% chance just to be effectively like a special Gigaton Hammer on this Pokemon, only it's actually even stronger than that. And so when you have a 120 base special attack, that's just going to find one-shots easily on a lot of Pokemon at neutral effectiveness. And that's absolutely insane. So it just has a 30% chance to get that nuke button. And that makes this Pokemon so much better. If we take another look too, it gets the Regenerator ability, which is one of the best abilities in the game. So it allows this Pokemon to just come in, do big damage, you can switch it out, and then it's still probably going to be able to take another hit pretty easily, dish out some more big damage. And that's what's going to make this Pokemon so threatening overall. Now the Grass, Dragon, Terra type, not Terra type, just normal typing, we've seen this before. Some Pokemon that are a little bit bulkier, like Appleton, can make use of this and still set up and be really tanky despite that. But with that grass typing, you do have a lot of weaknesses, and that's where I think you have a pretty good advantage against this Pokemon. But it can always Terra out. And I haven't really figured out what's going to be the best Terra type on this Pokemon yet. I think a lot of people are going to be running fairies to deal with this guy just to kind of have an immunity to the Fickle Beam, because it's going to be so annoying to deal with. And then as far as other coverage moves that it gets outside of the grass coverage, you get Earth Power and Hydro Pump, and I think you also get the Hyper Voice, maybe not. No, not him. And then you have Body Press too, which with that 110 base defense, you might see some people running the Body Press, especially on a bulkier set. That is potential, but for the most part, I think people are going to be opting for the Earth Power just with kind of that overlap with that coverage. And then Hydro Pump, I don't really expect to see that much, but it does have that as a coverage option, which is just pretty insane. As far as other things that this Pokemon gets, it gets Nasty Plot to set up with, which is absolutely crazy. Gets Recover too for Sustain, and it gets Yawn too, which is going to be really annoying to play around. So this thing just has some really good tools overall that it's going to make this Pokemon really annoying to deal with. Outside of, I have the Choice Specs on here just because I think this Pokemon has the potential to be a really good Choice Specs user. You can throw out a really powerful move if you have to switch out, oh well. And you can just come back in with that Regenerator ability and do some big damage. But with that Regenerator ability, I think this Pokemon just has the potential just to be a really good defensive tank. You can run Leftovers on it, you could run Citrus Berry, you could even run the Gov Berry. And there's just a lot of potential to be really strong with this Pokemon. You could even run Assault Vest, especially since you're more physically defensive. You could run Assault Vest, and if you're running Assault Vest, you could probably throw some more EVs into defense and run Body Press as a coverage move just to get more damage on the Body Press. And this thing's going to be really strong. Another way to run this Pokemon too that I was kind of thinking is it gets access to the Leaf Storm, it gets access to the Draco Meteor, and with that Regenerator ability and slow speed, I think a Jetpack could be a really popular item to run on this Pokemon, where you know you're going to take that hit with that slow speed stat, but then you just dish out a really powerful move, switch out, and then that Regenerator is going to heal you. So you have a ton of momentum, bringing a ton of damage down onto the field, and it's just going to make it easier for your other Pokemon to play around with. So I think that's going to be a really nice way to run Hydrapple as well. Now, as far as counters go, Enamorus is going to be really strong right now. We've talked about this a little bit with our Stellar Terra types video. Being able to have that contrary with the Stellar Terra Blast is going to be really, really nice. And I think that Enamorus is a really good user of it. And as far as your typing matchup goes against its coverage moves, you're going to have immunity to the Earth Power. You're going to have immunity to the Fickle Beam. You're going to resist the Giga Drain. And I think Hydro Pump is not going to be doing so much damage to you that you have to really worry about it that much. With that low accuracy, it's not going to be hitting stab a lot of times. Maybe they're going to be running the Terra Water. But all in all, I think Enamorus is going to be able to come in on this Pokemon really easily, switch in with those immunities, and just be able to like go Terra and start setting up really, really easy. Maybe you don't go Terra right away, too, in case they're running the Terra Stellar with Terra Blast, but I think the odds of that are pretty slim. And I think this Pokemon just has a really good typing matchup against the Hydrapple, so I think that's going to be a really good option. I think it's just going to be a really strong Pokemon in Regulation F in general, so it's definitely one to look out for as a good counter. The Whimsicott I really mentioned here just because I've seen a few people running Whimsicott on like the singles ladder, just because of that typing again. That Fairy Grass typing is going to be so good. It's good against all those coverage moves where you're either getting resists or the immunity to the Fickle Beam, which is huge. So even though you're not a very specially defensive Pokemon, I think that you can go like max special defense bulk. Just rely on that Cotton Guard with the Prankster to set up against like physical attackers. You have the Moonblaster coverage and that small chance to lower their special attack against special attackers. And you can just kind of hide behind Leech Seed and protect with leftovers to allow you to stall as well. This Pokemon also gets some nice things, like it gets Taunt and Encore too. We've seen Encore be so good in the Battle Stadium singles ladder the entire time in the Scarlet and Violet metagame. So this Pokemon, I think, is just another good option that if you're looking for something a little bit different and you're really worried about Hydrapple, maybe this is a good like physical wall to throw on your team just to kind of catch some people off guard with some cheese with the Leech Seed. It's going to be kind of fun to use. Now, Sylveon I put here. Sylveon and who's the other one? Oh, why can't I not think of it? Flabebe's final evolution. Oh gosh. Let's do this here. Let's search by special defense. Florges, thank you. So the Sylveon and the Florges are really good options. The reason I do Sylveon here is I just think it's a little bit better in singles, just because you're actually using your ability. As Florges is more of a doubles Pokemon, but Florges is just such a good special defense tank. And again, having that immunity to the Fickle Beam is going to be huge. You can go Terra Fire too, which the Sylveon really appreciates, just for really good coverage. You can also set up Calm Minds on it. I just think that the Sylveon is going to be a really, really good option here. Just because you have that such good like natural special defense bulk, and just like a good type hit against Hydrapple. Now, the reason I have Ursaluna Blood Moon form here is just taking a look at Hydrapple's speed stat. So if you're running this Pokemon yourself, if you're looking to run this Pokemon, it's really, really important to look at that speed stat. I have this as just like max hit points, max special attack, but there may be a world where, you know, you want to do a lot of speed creep here, to the point where, here, we'll do 56. So we're at 71 speed. Ursaluna is a Pokemon you might see speed creep. I gave it 20 speed EVs, so that puts it at 75. You may want to be above that, so we can go down even further. Let's say just like 156 here, and we're gonna make this 100. Now we're outspeeding Ursaluna, even with that speed creep there. So there may be a world where you actually want to do some speed creep on the Hydrapple just with less bulk, just so that you're finding natural outspeeds against Ursaluna Blood Moon form. Since we've seen this Pokemon be such a big threat, and this Pokemon's not very good special defensively, being able to hit it with that super effective Grass type move and get that move off before it can get off like a Blood Moon is going to be really, really good. So that's why I mentioned it here. Just if you're running Hydrapple, it may be worth running a lot of speed creep on this just to be able to outspeed some of those other threats. You're also slower than like Tainlu, and there's a lot of really like bulky, strong Pokemon right around that like 45 to 50 speed tier that you may want to outspeed. So it may be worth running some speed on this Pokemon if you're going to be running this on your team. The next Pokemon I want to talk about here is Archaludon. And this Pokemon is pretty nuts, right? A lot of people are really anticipating the Eviolite pre-evolution for this guy, Archaludon. But I think that overall it's one of those situations, kind of like with King Gambit versus the Bisharp, where you're better off just using those natural stats here just to be like a more defensive Pokemon overall. With that 130 physical defense, if you just go like as a special defense wall on this Pokemon and rely on that stamina ability, so you're just boosting your defense every time you're taking a physical move, this Pokemon's just going to be super tanky and hard to take out. The 90 hit points on this is pretty decent, right? Like, it's very weak special defensively. That's going to be the way to take this Pokemon out most times, is on that special side of things. But I think with that, you're going to see a lot of Pokemon, like a lot of these guys just running like full special defense bulk too, just trying to compensate for that with that stamina ability. And I think you're going to see a lot of healing items. I like the Agave Berry personally, just because if you're boosting those defenses, and you like have that max like special defense, it allows you to still use your moves a little bit and just give you a little bit of extra longevity where they're not going to expect it. I don't think you're going to get like taken out right away. I don't think like the Citrus Berry is going to help you out more a lot of times, because I think you're going to be able to live those hits. If you take a really big physical hit, you still have that natural hit point investment, and then you're going to have that stamina procking to give you some more physical defense. So I think the Agave Berry gives you the potential to live like a potential like third hit or fourth hit when you otherwise wouldn't on some Pokemon. And then it's also going to be nice against those special attackers too. But Citrus Berry could be a good option. Leftovers could be a good option. Moringa Berry might be popular just to boost that special defense too with that stamina ability. I think there's a lot of really good options on Archaludon. And then also Power Herb is another move item you might see run on it. That's because this signature move, Electroshock, this is basically like an electric version of Meteor Beam, where it's 130 base power move. It's really nice because it's got that 100% accuracy already. But it's a charging move. So that first turn you're going to charge, boost your special attack by 1 stage. That second turn you're going to land that damage. It's interesting because it's not going to have that stab damage on him naturally. But this move will also charge right away if you have the rain. And I've seen this Pokemon used probably more than any other new Pokemon so far, other than maybe Gouging Fire. This Pokemon's being run everywhere. And it's pretty obvious to tell like when they're going to be running it with rain. If you see a Pelipper on their team in this guy, or like a Politoed on this team, it's pretty easy to see if they're going to be running the rain support. And so just anticipating that and playing around it's going to be really important. We saw rain support with like Floatzel and Wave Crash be super strong, or Palafin, but they're pretty like predictable sets. So you just don't want to get like caught in that trap of not knowing that the Electroshot's coming under the rain, because this Pokemon can be really bulky, especially with an Assault Vest, and it can be annoying to deal with if you don't have a good counter to it. As far as other coverage moves go, it's going to have the Steel type options. It's going to have the Dragon options. I don't really know if it's going to opt for the Steel Beam or the Flash Cannon. Flash Cannon's a pretty good move. It's got Dragon Pulse and Draco Meteor. So, I mean, it's just got options depending on how it wants to be run. And then Body Press is also going to be a really nice move on it. You have a really nice natural defense. And then with the stamina boosting it even more, it's going to be really hard to deal with. So just being aware of like how good this Pokemon's going to be, being aware that its biggest weakness is its special defense, is going to be really important when dealing with this Pokemon. Now, as far as counters go, I am actually like a huge fan of Excadrill. I think Excadrill is just such a good anti-meta Pokemon right now. I think it's already good against a lot of big threats that are already in the game. And I really like Assault Vest because you can take those special hits really well. It allows you to just go all in on your speed and then still take those special hits. Oh, that's the other thing I didn't talk about with Archaludon too. You got to be careful with that speed stat, okay? 85 speed's actually really decent on a bulky Pokemon like this. We've seen base 80 speed tier be very crucial speed tier in the Scarlet and Violet metagame. Pokemon like Dragonite, Okidoki, Mamoswine. I mean, the list just keeps going on. There's so many Pokemon that base 80 speed tier. And so for a Pokemon to be faster than that too, this Pokemon could be running Timid and just be a fast threat, especially with the Power Herb. I could see this being very scary. And it actually does get access to the Meteor Beam too. So it could either go Electroshock or Meteor Beam with that Power Herb, rely on that natural bulk, and then just potentially start sweeping your team. And I think this could be a really strong option as well. But the nice thing about Excadrill is being that 88 base speed tier, you're going to want to go Jolly on this guy. But I think it's really strong with the Assault Vest. I think you're going to get a lot of resist, and you have the immunity to the Electroshock to deal with this Pokemon. But the damage calculations are where it gets iffy, right? It's got the stamina, it's got good natural bulk. And if it's like max hit points, max special attack, which is what I expect a lot of Archaludons to be run, that Earthquake's not always going to be a one-hit KO. In fact, I think it's not always even going to be a two-hit KO. It gets kind of iffy. Most times, you're going to be able to find that damage that you need, especially if it's an offensive set, you can find a one-hit KO on him some of the time, but it gets a little bit iffy. I think most times it's going to be a two-hit KO unless they're max physical bulk. which is the nice thing about it. But you got to be a little bit careful here. You're still going to want that speed to outspeed the fast Archaludon sets. But just be aware that you're not always going to find a one-hit KO, and that's where it's going to be really dangerous with the body press. I think I misspoke too. I think you're always going to find, I did the calculations, I think you're always going to find a 2-hit KO on most sets, but you're not always going to find that 1-hit KO. I think it's like a 50% chance to get a 1-hit KO on a more offensive Archaludon set. And that body press, if they're going to boost the body press, that could 1-hit KO you as well. Now, I think Terra Flying's going to be really good in the Excadrill, so you may just want to go Terra Flying if you're anticipating the body press or if you think they have it. But it's just hard to say. It's just something to be careful about if you're running this as your main counter to the Archaludon. Now, the reason I have Chi-Yu here is just because when I think of like a good special threat that's going to be able to sweep this Pokemon, you got that 100 base speeds here, and this Pokemon can just kind of wall break so many threats. Just with that massive special attack, with that Beads of Ruin ability to lower their special defense. But if you're running this as a choice scarf Pokemon, you have to run the Fire Blast if you want that 1-hit KO on Archaludon. If you're not running Fire Blast, it's going to be a 2-hit KO with the Flamethrower. But if you're running choice specs, you should comfortably be able to find the Flamethrower 1-hit KO a lot of the time, unless you're running Assault Vest, in which case it's going to be a 2-hit KO. So you got to be a little bit careful with that. But you got some decent natural special defense too, so I think that's pretty good for you when going up against Archaludon. Or if you're running Choice Scarf and you're running Terra Fire, that's another good option. And that way you don't have to worry about them coming at you with a body press, if they're running the Assault Vest and taking you out as well. So I think that Chi-Yu could just be a really good Pokemon to have in the back. If they knock you out with the Archaludon, you just come in with the Chi-Yu and you knock him out in 1 hit. And I think that Choice Specs is fine, honestly. Just running Timid Choice Specs is really strong with the Chi-Yu. You're going to outspeed the Pokemon that you want to outspeed and just find that 1-hit KO and just find that big damage. Now, Clodsire is the one that I really, really like because you have another immunity, again, to that Electroshock. And you're just such a big special defense wall with that 130 HP and high special defense. This is a Pokemon I really liked running as a special defense wall once all the Paradox Pokemon were introduced into the game. It was a great counter to a lot of them. And I think that's a great counter to Archaludon too. Our unaware Pokemon are just going to be so good in general to have on your team with all the setup that's going around. And so just having this good option here to deal with the guy is going to be really nice. I have a stockpile body press set, but there's a lot of ways to run this. You could run Cursed Amnesia, all sorts of stuff. But I think that body press, running the body press with some sort of defense boosting move is going to be really good in the Clodsire to deal with the Archaludon, just having that super effective damage. And if they tear out of it, then you can land the Toxic on them. So that's why I kind of like this set here. So talking about the next Pokemon here, I think this is probably going to be the most used Pokemon. And a little bit of a side tangent, I'm so frustrated that these Paradox Pokemon are version exclusives. You have to beat the entire game just to get them. I really hope they do an event soon to allow the other players to play with them, because these Pokemon are so meta-defying and they're so good in their own right, and to just lock them behind a version exclusive is just kind of frustrating because certain players are going to get access to other Pokemon. Initially, I really felt like the Scarlet players were winning out big here because I felt like both the Paradox Pokemon were way better than the Cobalion and Terrakion Paradox Pokemon. After I've gotten a chance to use, and I'm a Violet player, so I'm a little bit salty about it, but after I got a chance to play with the Violet exclusives, they're pretty good in their own right, so we'll talk about them in a second here. But Gouging Fire is just such a good threat, and the reason why is its stats are just so optimized here. We'll talk about first what I've been seeing the most, which is more defensive sets. That's signature move, Burning Bulwark here. This is a fire type move. It's like a protection move, and so you protect from attacking moves, and then if it's a physical hit, it's going to leave that opponent with a burn. And that's really, really nice when you have these really naturally high defensive stats here. Great hit points, great defense, very respectable special defense here. And you can just go as a special wall and just try to find those burns on the physical attackers, and it's a pretty safe way to run this Pokemon. Now, one thing to know with Burning Bulwark is it doesn't actually protect you from status moves. So if you wanted to use something like Thunder Wave to cripple this Pokemon, that's going to be really good and prevent it from setting up. Or you can use Toxic just to put a timer on it, or any other kind of status you want, really. And you can also use Encore too, just to lock them into the Burning Bulwark if you find that opportunity. That could be kind of nice. But where I think this Pokemon really shines is just being such a good Dragon Dance setup Pokemon. So the thing about Dragon Dance is you're already getting those offensive stats, and like 91 and 115 is not a bad place to start off with your attack and speed stats respectively. So just having that natural bulk and just be able to get up to Dragon Dances at the point where you're going to be able to like find those 1-hit KOs on neutral matchups against most Pokemon is huge. It feels so good to get 2 Dragon Dances up, and this Pokemon does it so reliably well that it makes it so frustrating. I like the Citrus Berry here just to consistently make sure that you're living those hits and finding that setup option. I mean, I would honestly probably just go max bulk on this guy. You could just go max attack, max speed if you wanted just more offensive option. If you could go max attack, max hit points, because you're going to be doubling that speed. You're going to be able to outspeed a lot of Pokemon anyway. There's just so many options you have, but it's so easy to set up with the Dragon Dance with this Pokemon. And then that Fire Dragon coverage is really nice too. You have a lot of options here as far as your moves go. You have the... what is it called? The Raging Fury is basically a fire type outrage equivalent. This thing also does get outrage, so maybe there's a world where you run Lumberry too, especially since you have the potential to be status because of that Burning Bulwark. I think Lumberry could be a really, really good item on this Pokemon, especially if you're running like max attack, max speed. So that way, if you only can get 1 Dragon Dance up, that could still be really good for you. And then with that added damage of just the higher base power moves of the Raging Fury and the Outrage, you're going to be in a really good range. And then Earthquake's just another really good coverage move as well. I don't think you get access to Extreme Speed, no. But this Pokemon is just insane, right? It's just such a good Dragon Dance setter, so it's going to be kind of difficult to deal with. It's definitely going to be run on a lot of people's teams, especially if they have Scarlet version. So it's something just to be aware of. Now, something I didn't know, Iron Boulder, if you don't know, its signature move, Mighty Cleave. It's a 95 base power rock-type move with 100% accuracy, and it breaks through protecting moves. That counts for the Burning Bulwark too, and you're not going to get burned from breaking through it either. It just hits right through. And I've been using Iron Boulder a lot, so it's been really fun to use the Iron Boulder and just use that Mighty Cleave to break through the Burning Bulwark. It feels so good. So it's just something to know that if you're a Scarlet player running the Gouging Fire, be aware that if they're going to be able to hit you through that Burning Bulwark, don't think that you're going to be able to drop fire status on, like burn status on them and just take them down that way. And it's just really nice if you're running the Iron Boulder to have an option to deal with it. In addition to the Iron Boulder, I think that Ogerpon with the Ivy Cudgel with the Cornerstone Mass is going to be really strong as well. Ivy Cudgel doesn't make contact, so that's not going to be able to use the Burning Bulwark on you. And honestly, if I was running this Pokemon, I'd probably just use Sword Stance if they try to catch me on a burn. Otherwise, they're just going to have to be switching out. And then you're going to find that 1-hit KO with the Ivy Cudgel. Even on a more defensive set, you're going to find the 1-hit KO. And it's just really, really nice. Just defensive walls in general are going to be really good against Gouging Fire. And I think Dondozo has been consistently one of the best physical defense walls because of the Unaware ability, because of your high hit point stat and your high defense stat. And I love running Rocky Helmet on this Pokemon. This Pokemon has just been such a crucial Pokemon to a lot of my teams. And I think this Pokemon's going to be super good. So just coming in, you can ignore those Dragon Dances. And every time they do damage to you, they're going to be taking damage from the Rocky Helmet. It's mostly just going to be using contact moves. Earthquake's not going to do that much. So if you're just using another physical move, I usually just run Avalanche, which is still going to be hitting for neutral damage just because of that Dragon typing. You can just kind of whittle it down, or you can go for fissures or whatever you need to do. And I think that Dondozo is just a really, really good option as well. And then add just Archaludon here just to show that you can use the Thunder Wave against the Burning Bulwark. So let's talk about Raging Bolt here now. Raging Bolt is the Paradox form for Raikou. And taking a look at its stats here, it's got an insane hit point stat and an insane special attack stat. So this thing's just super bulky, got a really good special attack stat. 75 base speed means that you're still going to be slower than a lot of those base 80 speed tier Pokemon, but still faster than a lot of takey and bulky Pokemon, like a lot of walls. And that's really nice just to have that natural speed. I think a lot of times you're just going to be going max hit points, max special attack on this Pokemon, maybe a little bit of speed creep here. And then also it gets access to Calm Mind to set up too, which is just really frustrating. You could go more physically defensive and set up with the Calm Minds if you want to, although I think just going max hit points is fine on this guy since they're pretty evenly spread out on the defenses here. And then its signature move, Thunderclap, this is basically just Sucker Punch, but it's electric move and it's special. So if they're going for an attacking move, you're going to have priority on them, and you're going to go first. But if they're just going for a status move or something like that, the move's going to fail. And I think that it's so strong when you're getting that stab, 137 base power special attack stat on your side. You could go booster energy and just boost that even further, and then have the option to go other moves. I have the option to set up Calm Mind still, and have this be really strong. Yeah, I have the Citrus Berry in here just to set up a Calm Mind, because once you start setting up a Calm Mind with that special attack stat, you're doing insane damage, having a stat priority option at base 70 power. It's got Draco Meteor. It could just be going for the Dragon Pulses if it wants just a more reliable option to use after setting up. And then Hyper Voice is pretty much its only other good special option. It doesn't really have a lot of good special coverage. It has the Ancient Power, which maybe some people are going to be running as Weather Ball if it's being run on weather. You know, I could see this being run with like a Sun team just to get that photosynthesis boost. And then you have that for the coverage. Or Terra Blast. I could see this Pokemon just running some sort of Terra Blast coverage option. Now, as far as counters go, I really like the Excadrill with the Assault Vest again. Just gives you enough natural bulk. You can switch in on the Raging Bolt pretty easily there with his coverage moves. You're resisting the Stab Dragon, and you have the immunity to the electric options that it's going to have. And Hyper Voice is the other coverage option. You're going to resist that too. So you're going to be faster than it. You're going to find some really big damage with that 135 damage and the Earthquakes. So I think that Excadrill is just a really good option again, especially with the Assault Vest. I really like. Clefable I put down here because with that Unaware, you're just going to be able to ignore their Calm Minds. You're going to have that immunity to their Dragon type moves, and you can just kind of ignore the Thunderclap as you're setting up. And really kind of force them to have to play around that. So I think that Clefable kind of comes in and just can set up with the Unaware and the Calm Mind and be kind of a big threat against the Raging Bull. I've been using Clefable to kind of handle this Pokemon pretty well, and it shuts it down just fine. And you just have a lot of other really good options. I like the Tane Lu because you can use Whirlwind just to force it to switch out if it's been setting up Calm Minds. And you're bulky enough that even its Dragon moves are not going to be doing that much damage to you here. But there's just a lot of really good special defensive walls I think that are in the game right now that can deal with Raging Bolt. I think Sylveon can probably deal with it pretty well still there, having the immunity to be able to set with Calm Mind so it can't just hit you with the Thunderclap. And really forcing them to have to kind of play around that too. So Thunderclap's pretty good, but it's definitely easy to play around if you know what's coming with this Pokemon. Just be very careful of that high special attack stat. The next Pokemon that we're talking about here is Iron Crown. Now I like this Pokemon. It's kind of interesting, but I think it's very limited in its use. So being a 95 base speed tier Pokemon, where have we seen this before? With a high special attack, this Pokemon makes me think of Hydreigon, all the way. And I love running Hydreigon with some speed support because at that 98 base speed tier, you're getting outsped by a lot of the faster sweeping Pokemon, but you still want to be fast. So I think that this Pokemon definitely benefits from the booster energy or the Focus Sash there, just to find that little bit of extra speed to outspeed those sweepers. And then you can hopefully just take them down with that high special attack and the high base power moves. As far as move options go, that signature move Tachyon Cutter, it basically is a 100 base power move. It hits twice like Dragon Darts, and it also has perfect accuracy. It never misses. So just a really good stab option on this Pokemon. And I think a lot of times you're just going to be going Terra Steel just to kind of boost that Tachyon Cutter for extra damage. We saw with Dragapult, going Terra Dragon. You could just find 1-hit KOs with that natural speed. Especially if you're going Choice Band, just to 1-hit KO a lot of Pokemon. I think that to a lesser extent, this Pokemon does that too. And just being able to break through Pokemon with Focus Sash feels so good. I've been using this guy with the Choice Scarf on the ranked ladder, or not the ranked ladder, the casual matches. I mean, it just feels so good just to find this 1-hit KOs going Terra Steel and just find that big damage on this guy. Now, I think Booster Energy actually is going to be really strong. And I kind of like using the Booster Energy just to get that max speed. Oh, I didn't go Timid on this guy. So ignore those EV spread. But you're just going to want to go lower special attack than the speed just to get that speed boost. So we can actually go lower hit point investment and bring that up quite a bit. But something like that there, just so you have that speed, and you can set up the Calm Mind on special attackers, so that you're having that natural bulk ahead of time, and you might be able to set up 2 Calm Minds and sweep. You might just need the 1 Calm Mind, then you have that damage, just to find out those 1-hit KOs with the Tachyon Cutter. I really like Psychic Noise on this Pokemon, just so that you can stop those healing Pokemon. You can prevent setup Pokemon from being able to take advantage of you. But it also does have access to Psychic for more damage, or the Psyshock if you want like a option to handle those special defensive walls. And then Air Slash is pretty much its only other coverage move on the special side of things, outside of the Volt Switch, which I pretty much only ever run with like the Choice Scarf. I think the Volt Switch is a pretty good option here. And then Steel Beam. I think this Pokemon's an excellent Steel Beam user. Having that 122 special attack with that high speed, it's an ideal Steel Beam Pokemon to me. And I think that Steel Beam, especially in the Battle Stadium singles ladder, is just a really good coverage option too, because sometimes you just want a Pokemon to be death fodder. If they're going to be setting up on you and have a really good setup option, sometimes it's nice just to nuke them with a big power move, even if they're going to be able to live it, and then take yourself out so you can come in fresh with a new Pokemon and just be able to handle that. It puts your Pokemon in a really tough position, and it keeps the momentum on your side really well. So I know that it doesn't seem desirable to have that like half your health be cut by the Steel Beam, but there are definitely some situations where this is really good. Now, hilariously enough, I think this Pokemon actually does really well with grassy terrain support. So if you have a Rillaboom or an Arboliva on your team with the Steel Beam, because you can actually get off 3 Steel Beams. If you want to just go Terra Steel, Steel Beam, and roll everything over, that grassy terrain is going to allow you to heal up a little bit if you're finding those outspeeds with the Choice Scarf to actually get off 3 Steel Beams, which is so nice. Now, as far as Pokemon to cover it, I know we've been talking about the Excadrill a lot, but I'm telling you guys, it's going to be such a good anti-meta threat here. Run it just max speed, max attack with the Assault Vest. It's going to be able to handle a lot of big threats. It's going to be able to handle a lot of already existing threats that are in the game. It's just going to be such a good sweeper Pokemon, which you have such a high hit point stat already that I think a lot of people are just going to be able to expect to take you out, especially with that special side of things. And you just take super effective hits with the Assault Vest. It feels so good on this Pokemon to live those special hits. And this Pokemon just has such good coverage against a lot of Pokemon. So definitely don't rule out the Excadrill if you're looking for a counter to deal with a lot of these threats. King Gambit just has a great typing, just has good moves against this Pokemon. If it goes Terra Steel, you can run the Brick Break. We've seen screens be very popular a lot lately, especially with the introduction of Alolan Ninetales with the Teal Mask DLC. Be able to set up the Aurora Veil, or just dual screens from the Grimmsnarl. So just having a way to break through those screens is a really good option. And then the Dark type moves are going to be able to hit super effectively if it doesn't go Terra. You just have really good resist to all its coverage options. Magnezone has also great resist to all its coverage options. Same thing with Archaludon. The nice thing about Magnezone too is you have that Magnet Pull, so you can just trap the Iron Crown. I'm pretty sure nobody's gonna be running like Shed Tail Iron Crown. So if you're just looking for like a funny way to just like absolutely capitalize on a Pokemon, Magnezone can come in, trap it, and just do whatever it wants to it, right? Or just take it down with ease. So I really like the Magnezone as well as a good option against the Iron Crown. But I don't think Iron Crown's too hard to deal with. It's just you gotta respect how much damage it can do with that Terra Steel, with the Tachyon Cutter, with the Steel Beam. And then the last Pokemon we need to talk about here is Iron Boulder. So Iron Boulder, taking a look at it, that Rock Psychic typing is so bad defensively. You have so many weaknesses with that, and I think that's the biggest thing that holds this Pokemon back. I was kind of dismissing this Pokemon just because of that. And it's kind of like, 120 attack, now with all the power creep, with all the defensive walls, you're not really finding the damage you need. But then I kind of just realized that, like, with Focus Sash, that 124 speed is insane. You're faster than Meowscarada. You're going to be faster than most of the threats in the game. Iron Boulder is going to outspeed you, so Iron Boulder is going to give you a rough time. But you also, like... sorry, I don't know why my mind just blanked right there. With the Focus Sash, you're able to still take a hit and do some decent damage to them with the Mighty Cleave. You might not find the 1-hit KO because it has some decent natural bulk, but if you find that super effective hit, a lot of times you're still going to find that 1-hit KO, even against an Iron Bundle. And I think just having the Focus Sash as a lead, too, can be really good with the Iron Boulder. I think a lot of people are going to be running it with the Booster Energy, just to get that extra speed, or they might even run it for some extra attack and just be a little bit slower. But I am in full support of just running this guy with the Focus Sash here, trying to set up the Swords Dance when you can. You set up a Swords Dance with this guy, just Rock type is just such a good physical option in general, just such a good like attacking option with the matchups you're going to have. This is just such a reliable move that steamrolls so many Pokemon. You're definitely going to be able to 1-hit KO with the Gouging Fire with setting up a Swords Dance against it, and just a lot of other Pokemon. So I think this Pokemon just does really well. As far as like your stab option for the physical side of things, this does not get Psychic Fangs, which is really disappointing. I've been running with Zen Headbutt with the Focus Sash, but you do have that 90% accuracy, so you got to be really careful with that. I just figure I'll take that 20% chance to find the flinch with that lower base power move, because most times I'm going for that Mighty Cleave anyway for the damage. And then Earthquake just really rounds out your coverage really well with this Pokemon. It gets access to Sacred Sword in close combat and Mega Horn, but honestly I think if you're looking for really good coverage, this is like the moveset to go for this Pokemon. Now as far as Pokemon that handle this really well, Tachyon Cutter actually does super good against this. If you're running Choice Scarf to be able to outspeed the Iron Boulder, especially with it trying to rely on that Focus Sash, you're just going to be able to take it out right away. I think the Iron Crown with the Choice Scarf has been a really good lead, and in general, and just be able to Volt Switch and pivot out and stuff, especially if they have like a Corviknight or something like that to try to deal with this Pokemon. It's a really nice option, so definitely a good way to deal with this guy. Dondozo, again, such a good physical wall. The Underwear is going to ignore the Sword Stance, so even if they're able to get up a Sword Stance and knock out one of your Pokemon, you can just kind of use that as death fodder if you have the Dondozo in the back, and this guy just completely shuts down Iron Boulder with ease. So that's really nice to see. Breloom, I think, could definitely make a return in this generation or in this battle season. I think it's going to be good against a lot of the new returning Pokemon that are going to be used. And I really like Focus Sash, and then with that Bullet Seed, it's going to allow you to just break through the Focus Sash. So you could just go Spore first turn, set up a Sword Stance, and then go for the Bullet Speed if you're feeling risky. You could go straight for a Bullet Seed. I do think that with its high speed, though, you got to be careful with the Breloom, because otherwise it's going to be able to outspeed you if you're going for a loaded dice set. So you got to be careful with that, unless you try to trap them with Terra Dark or something really whack like that. And then Scizzor's already been such a good Pokemon again, being good against Fluttermane and against a lot of these other mons. It's good against Espathra. And having that priority Bullet Punch is just so good against Iron Boulder as well. And Metagross too, I guess, for that reason. But Scizzor's definitely the winner in my opinion. So I guess that's pretty much all I have to say right now for these Pokemon. Again, we're going to do an individual moveset guide on all these guys, but I did want to talk about them because I think that all 6 of these Pokemon are going to impact the metagame in some pretty significant ways, respectively. And I think it's really important to know what they bring to the table and just what are some really good counters to deal with them if you're really struggling to deal with them with your team. Hopefully now you have some ideas of how to handle these guys. So thank you so much for watching, and this is Indigo Gamer out.